and this is the second in our series of residences, and Laura and Shauna Lee have been very gracious to describe their program. They have a pretty unique program. We met them a while ago. I met Shauna Lee and Jennifer also, who I believe still works for the organization as far as I know. And they're in criminal justice things, and they're two of the more amazing and inspiring people I've met since I've had this job. And Laura's amazing too. And what they do is amazing. And so you guys take it away and tell us about YWCA WIND.
Thank you for all the compliments, but we're definitely not that far up on the pedestal. So yeah, I'm Laura Albertini-Weigel. I'm the director of the WIND program, and WIND stands for Women Inspired in New Directions. And I asked Shauna to come on with me because she's my right and left hand as lead house technician, peer recovery support specialist, program coordinator, intake person. She is a reentry, reach back navigator, in training stuff. You know, I don't want to call her that, but so we have lots of hats. And I want to recognize that she has a little expertise about a whole lot of things. We are a 3-quarter peer supported recovery housing. We have 2 locations, one in Ohio County, one in Marshall County. We have been operating since about 2013. We also have other programs because we are tied to the YWCA, and all of those programs often overlap and play a role, or we play a role in their programming. So an example of that, we have the human trafficking programming, or STEP, Survivors Trafficked Empowerment Program. I always get the wording wrong. And so a lot of our people who are in recovery have been trafficked. And we hook them up with the services if they recognize that and want the services. We have the ability to hook them up with that. We also have the domestic violence program, and we offer support group through that. A lot of our individuals have also been in domestic situations, and they are able to participate in that support group and receive the services through that entity. We have cultural diversity, and a lot of our advocacy and education in the community goes by way of that programming, as well as training our staff, but just building awareness and trying to deal with lessening the stigma. You know, everywhere you go, everybody says, not in my backyard, and we're all about, we're every reason why we should be in your backyard. We should be your best friend and your next door neighbor. So that said, you know, we are a phase system, and I'm going to throw it at Shauna, and she's going to talk a lot about that. But we work in the Northern Panhandle and actually in other parts of the state, because we take individuals from anywhere. With the court system, we have a state treatment court that we work with. We have the federal treatment court that we work with. And we are a part of the founding members of the family treatment court. And now we have 3 up here, one in Ohio County, one in Marshall County, and one in YWCA County. So we're seeing good things growing and coming of those things, and our participation and role in that. And we work with a lot of those women. The other thing that we have that other entities may or may not have is it's a separate transitional housing program. And in our transitional housing program, the unique thing is that while they are working through WIND successfully, if they are working towards getting their children back and they need to bring them into a safe place to have unsupervised visits, overnight visits, they are able to start the process through the transitional housing program, with the hope is that they eventually move into their at least short term until they get reestablished and get housing appropriate out in the community. And we can do that an additional 18 to 24 months beyond the actual WIND program. So we work with those mothers. We run a nurturing parenting program, which is a 6-week program for parents that need bolstering. A couple of us got specializations in working with families in early recovery and some of the barriers and how we can help address that. We do a life skills assessment with every individual that comes in, and we look at the strengths and weaknesses, and we hook them up with needed services or needed training. We do life skills training here every week, different topics throughout the year, and they are required to participate in their weekly life skills here at the Y. And again, the topics change. This summer, we were blessed to get a grant to do a family cooking program, and it's been almost 8 weeks. Every time they participate in the family cooking program, they get a utensil or something that they can use in their kitchen. And at the end of the completion of the cooking classes, which we have chefs from the local area come in and do realistic food prep, learning to live on a dime. But at the end, they get a voucher for, I believe it's Kroger's, for $350 for them to be able to make use. So we were really excited, and we've had great participation in that program. So that's my little snippet of all the surrounding things, and I'm going to let Shauna talk to you about the nuts and bolts from intake on of the actual WIND program.
Hello, my name is Shauna Lee. I hope I do not break up too bad. Am I still breaking up? Okay. All right, great. So Laura had mentioned that we are a 3-phase program. Those 3 phases are built. It's a goal for completion, not an absolute. So phase 1 is a goal for completion for 30 days, phase 2, 90 days, and phase 3, 60 days. Phase 1, they are on it's sort of a blackout period of restriction. A lot of the individuals that come to our program are not from the area, so that gives them time to get to know us to get to know them, and them to just really figure out where they are in their area. Throughout that process, we're slowly pushing them a little bit more and more as the time goes on to become aware of their bus routes, aware of the roads. They're usually walking back and forth to their IOP. Initially, they come in, they don't have anything. We are making sure that they get their identification, social security card, birth certificate. We are blessed to have a person in the building that is certified with Project ID. So she does all of that. And we are lucky to have that resource. She takes them to the DMV, gets them their ID. We get them signed up with treatment. Intensive outpatient programming is required. They're signing up for therapy, seeing a physician. A lot of individuals haven't seen a physician in a long time, so they are required to do that. Required to have a gynecologist appointment, just make sure that their health is up to date. During that time, they're also completing community service, 20 hours a week, and that prepares them to get into a routine and also allows them to give back to their community. After we do case management every 2 weeks, we set goals every 2 weeks on top of the phases. They are resident focused goals. So maybe somebody wants to get their license, and that's a huge goal. So we break that down, and we'll base that either short-term or long-term goal off of a whole bunch of short-term goals. So they're able to gain instant gratification as they go from checking off each box. Phase 2, they're looking for employment, and phase 2 is built on budgeting pretty much. They are, they're calling the DMV, they're getting everything that they have listed against their license. They're getting all their fines in order and writing it all down on a piece of paper. And then we come together, and as they're getting paychecks, we are coming up with a budgeting plan. They budget with us for a little while, and then since the goal for completion is 90 days, they have that 3-month period to really get the hang of it themselves. And we like to see them doing that on their own before we phase them up from phase 2 to phase 3. They are required to get a checking account. They're required to check in with us and have rational, responsible spending. They're paying $240 a month to stay here. It's rent, health and wellness fees. And throughout that process, they're just paying us like a landlord. During phase 3, they are just balancing all that. They're balancing their their aftercare with their treatment. A lot of them have to go to the intensive outpatient program of some sort for, you know, up to a year, or 18 months if they're involved in federal or state drug courts. So it can be very overwhelming, keeping up with, you know, either part-time or full-time employment, going to their drug or treatment courts, maintaining all of their appointments, throw a child into that mix and it gets even crazier because now they're having the demands of visitation, extra parenting. Some child protective service agencies require additional things that we do not provide. So they might be attending 2 parenting classes at the same time in some instances. So a lot of what phase 3 looks like is that we are just there to catch them if they fall. We're the piece that gets them from A to B when they don't have time and can't figure out how to do it, right? And that's really the goal, is that they are able to navigate on their own successfully, and they need us less and less, right? So we can set them up for success. And by the time that period is over, you know, they're typically ready to graduate. And a lot of them are transitioning into our transitional housing program. Transitional housing program, we continue to do case management with them every 2 weeks. We just maintain setting goals, completion of goals, and continue to support them along the way.
Some of the stuff that I didn't hear, but like the whole recovery piece, obviously they are meeting throughout that time with the PRSS. They come up with a recovery plan. They do go to initially 90 meetings in 90 days. We take them to every type of meeting that is available in our area so that they can experience different pathways. And some of them that are on medicated assisted treatment participate in programs offered through our outpatient, like trust program, for different types of further education and skills building and confidence building and contingency management. So they address all of that as well. We have a community focused treatment program through our one mental health facility that works on a lot of basic living skills. If we have people who are struggling with all of their basic and need more intensive case management. So we do those things, and they do attend a lot of recovery activities, and we do things to promote fun in recovery and, you know, keep them engaged in that. We do have the women here have a NA meeting every week that they run, that they manage, that is held in this building, that is open to the public as well. We grow and change as the need arises, and you know, Shauna does a lot of work through the prison and Department of Corrections with individuals and intakes via that way. And sometimes people are coming to us not necessarily for recovery. We have a few that are second chance. So they are getting additional services, not necessarily recovery services, but the opportunity to have a home plan and basically put their pieces back together as well. So it's kind of side by side, that those things may be happening concurrently. Does anybody have questions for what we do, or what, you know, is offered, or what, how the structure is?
I have one. Do you all ever have any difficulty with the interaction between the people in recovery and the people not necessarily in recovery in the other parts of your program? We're actually looking at a program right now that's kind of similar, but not quite as.
I think probably the biggest challenge is, so some of our programming, not necessarily in our residence, but within the facility, there may still be people in active use. And so sometimes we have to do a lot of intervention on, you run into it within the community, run into it within your workplace. You're going to see this, and how to best give them tools to handle that, because there are programs. But within our residents, it's actually the opposite, that all of the individuals that may be living there have to comply by that, because we do random drug testing, and the room inspections and all of that, and they have to meet those criteria as well. So if we have an individual that comes in for that, we are able to deal with that on a one-on-one basis. So at some point, Danny, we're probably going to be separating all of that. Things are in the works. We were donated land recently and money to look at building another facility. But that's very, very early in the works. So we'll see.
Part of the reason I asked is because we're actually looking at a program now that has a homeless shelter and then built a recovery floor on top of a homeless shelter. And we've talked to other NAR people, and I don't know if other NAR people would ever be okay with that. And I mean, it's a really unique situation. I just wondered if you had any insight.
Well, the insight is it's very difficult. The challenge is very real. And we realize that the thing we do not have in our community, both for males and females, is for those that have serious mental health issues that are keeping them homeless, and they may also have addictions issues as well. We need case managed housing for them. It does not exist. Some people would benefit. Obviously, they've been in and out of sharps a million times, right? And so we don't have mental health technicians. We're really not equipped to have individuals. So when we screen, we really ask a lot of questions so that we can give people the best opportunity for success and not set them up for fail. Does it always work? Shauna will tell you sometimes it backfires.
I will tell you, Danny, we turn a lot of people away. It's very unfortunate because we do require drug testing to be done on anyone that enters the recovery floor, because we do have, more than one program on this floor. Everyone has to be of sane mind, or it's just not fair. I don't know that if we did not do that, that it would work. But it is unfortunate that we do have to turn individuals away because they're not able to test clean. On the flip side of that, there are times where we can hook them up with a different program that is associated with the Y. A lot of times individuals will also meet the criteria for DV or human trafficking, or, possibly one of those other programs.
That's when they may be put in another residence.
But they don't have to go back to the streets.
Right.
Yeah, there's another program that's certified that is in the process of doing something like I'm mentioning. They're doing the same thing. They have a homeless shelter, and they're in the process of having a sort of a more intensive phase one of what they do now on top of the homeless shelter. But I mean, I don't know if it would have to have a different entrance or something like that, because I don't know what their homeless shelter's like. But I just wondered if you all had any insight on that. We might have to have them talk to you all.
Yeah, our local Salvation Army is actually in the process of adding 30 male beds.
Yeah.
For the means of addressing recovery and reentry.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know how they're going to separate it from homeless either, because they have the same scenario. We haven't really talked about that. Actually, the day we're having the homeless meeting was at 1:00 today. And so that's really just coming out. It hasn't started, but they are in the process. And I don't know how they are setting up their parameters. So I'm sure there will be discussion about that. It's a challenge.
Oh yeah.
We really hate that, like she said, the fact that we turn a lot of individuals away because they don't meet criteria. And we do try to hook them up to something and refer them back to the Homeless Coalition.
On the flip side of that, sorry not to cut you off, Laura, if they're willing to go to the crisis unit, we will drive them there. If they are willing to go to treatment after the crisis unit, we will navigate and we will support them through the whole process. And then they're housed, from place to place, and then they can come directly back to us because we'll make sure that they have a spot on that list. So we try to do that as well. We don't necessarily just turn them away if they're willing to go through the motions to get help.
Shauna's even started doing it for the males who show up outside of our building because we're just desperate to get that need met. And yeah,
We want people to live,
Yeah. Wheeling needs it too.
we thank you for taking the time to hear about us. I mean, like I
Oh, no
said,
problem.
we're always a work in progress, and
Problem.
we
I've
look
got,
at new
I've
ideas
got more
all-
questions probably eventually, over time they won't pop in my head right off the bat, but
Well, I do have some questions actually. So as far as like, all the women on your recovery floor, are in various states of maybe being released from incarceration, all of those things. And maybe Joey can chime in after you guys give me your answer, is how do you combat the prison mentality within your program? What are like key elements that you implement or key things that you do to combat that institutional,
Shauna, how do you combat it?
Well, we do a lot of mediation. Different groups are harder than others. And I hate to say it like that. It's just, it just doesn't seem to be a problem all the time. We try to make sure, well, one, they know that safety for everyone needs to feel safe. And I preach it all the time in order to recover. If you don't feel safe, then your brain won't allow you to recover. So you guys have to support each other. You need to be mentors to each other. And we're constantly preaching that support from early on. We give them, the opportunity to take a bus with a woman that has been here a little bit longer than her. So, they're building those relationships. The individual that has been here a little bit longer, feels good about being able to help her sister in recovery, right? And then the person that's just coming in, they feel supported, and not just by staff, but by their community, their recovery community. So I think that it kind of does its own job in a sense. Now, do they get, the efforts sometimes, or the fall back into that old way of thinking? Absolutely. But that's where we come together. A lot of our life skills stuff on Mondays is based on like that cognitive thinking, and how it does us a disservice to not be able to identify, like, what are our criminal thinking errors, where are our rational thinking errors, where is this going to get us if we keep thinking like this? So we're constantly thinking and talking about those things. And then I'm a big feelings person, so I'm always like, okay, so when you did this, how did that make you feel? And I'm always calling them out, like, hey, your attitude sucks, what's up, or how would you feel if someone said that to you, or what's wrong with your face right now, just all that kind of stuff. That they're I know it might sound mean, but that's really what it is. Just those real conversations, just like humans having conversations with humans, and eventually they know that they're like, oh crap, I better adjust it. Like, what's going on with me right now? I think, and it's just a level of like that unconditional love and support that we try to grow around here, so that they're able to hopefully not hate each other or push each other out the door. We don't tolerate bullying or any of that, so they know that's a no way.
First of all, like she said, we are a safe place, and we preach that above all else. She's right, we do a lot of mediation. I think probably the biggest challenge that we see is that when we have individuals come in, that maybe had criminal history before they had addiction history. And so they are more criminal thinking than those who got involved in the criminal justice system or corrections because of their addiction. It's a different mindset. And that's probably where we have the biggest struggle, is when we have those who truly can't get out of the criminal thinking because that's where they came from, as opposed to they got into the criminal behavior because of their addiction. So probably that's where we see the biggest difference or the biggest struggle in trying to get that mindset to change. We spend a lot of time having these conversations.
It definitely feels safe there. When I remember, it might be the nature of the building because it's not a traditional recovery house building, but for whatever reason, I can remember just wanting to lay down and nap in a room somewhere or something. Felt safe and I don't know, like welcoming or something like that. But
Everybody wants to come here to sleep, Danny. That's what they always say.
Yeah.
I've spent several nights here. Shauna has spent a lot of nights here.
Joey, is there any particular way you kind of combat that you know, convict mentality, that me versus the world mentality? I only care about what I'm doing, and you know, not to hold people accountable because you know it's against the code kind of thing. Like how do you counteract those kind of things? Because I know in men and women it's just a little bit different how to approach those scenarios.
I think it's just constant reinforcement. It's communication. Biggest, you know, when we things will go on really for a little while before you even realize it. And then, you know, once we're aware of it, then it's communication. It's sitting down, have come to Jesus meeting with whoever's involved. And sometimes it's the carrot with encouragement. Sometimes it's the stick. But, you know, I just think it's just part of it. And, you know, it's always going to be there. We've had tons of instances that were you know, not wanting to hold each other accountable, you know, don't want to be a rat and all that. And, you know, it's understandable, but it's, you know, it's hard to root out. You know, we've even had to address some of the gang type personas coming out of you know, we've gotten several people, you know, in one particular group that's been in the house and that's kind of started to show up in the house. And so we've had to address that, you know, very, very confrontational, very upfront. This is not going to go on here. You know, if you want to continue that, then we'll help you get back to there where that type of behavior is appropriate. You know, when we're in jail, it's survival mode. I get that, you know, but they just got to learn that that's not here. And like you said, it's a safe place. Everyone has a right to recover here. And we're going to protect that at all costs. And if you can't get on board, then there's the door.
I always say there's welcome on both sides of the door. You are welcome to stay here and work on yourself, and we will provide you every tool possible that you can use. And if you don't not feel that we're serving you in that way, you are welcome to go back out that same door, especially if we think you're dragging others down with you.
Yeah, that's the important part is you've got everybody else to worry about. You know, the overall atmosphere of the home is, you know, that's a constant balancing act. And we were just talking about it the other day. If you get a couple people that's just came for a home plan and they're not really bought into treatment or change or anything, they're just trying to get out of prison, didn't have no other option. They bring that mentality, and just like when you hear like you are who your closest 5 friends are, that sort of thing. The atmosphere of the house will be that of kind of the majority, especially. But you know, you get a few individuals kind of leaning in one attitude, one mindset, and it affects the whole house, and it will drag the whole house down. And then you get somebody involved in sneaky, dishonest behavior, then it's even that much worse. And so you just have to be very quick, I think, to clearly communicate that and be willing to stand behind. After you've communicated it, be willing to enforce anything necessary. And sometimes a discharge of a couple people or a write-up and restrictions of a couple people that will shape everybody back up into, in line, and then you can go on until the next event happens.
We had it this summer. Shauna was on vacation and we went through 5 women. Thank God we have a great relationship with probation and parole. I think 3 of them went back and did 30 days because they couldn't let go of, and they wouldn't admit, and they weren't honest, and they were dragging the other people with them.
Yeah, I tell you, summer's the worst. It's a lot easier in the wintertime when it's just different. It's a different environment. It's too cold to get out and be ornery.
Well, and we're close to the waterfront, Joey, here, and there are fairs and festivals here every weekend. And so it's kind of like the education piece on that, because we want to get back into it and be moving and shaking, and that just doesn't flow.
Yeah.
So it's keeping them busy and keeping them occupied and, having their own fun in a healthy way and staying away from that. So
seasons are different, and it is, in my experience, it's more difficult in summer. You'll have more people leave the program, discharge from the program because of just it being summer, and it's kind of you want to get out, and you want to be free, and you want to do things, and wintertime we're more content with isolation. Isolation is probably not the best word, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm looking forward to fall.
I was going to say, I don't know about anybody else, but I think I'd rather stay inside when it's too hot. I melt.
Yeah, I don't like summer. The mentality though, like I've been on the right path for a lot of years, but even we had a situation recently where there was a home where something really dangerous was happening in it. And I told the resident that I was talking to, if you don't call 911, I will. Like, I mean, it had to, like, one of us is calling 911. I'm not letting it get called. And so hitting those 3 numbers was harder for me than probably anything I've done in this whole job, just calling 911. So it's deeply ingrained. It's in your bones when you've been through it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for that. And honestly, I asked that for selfish reasons. It's to help another person.
My question was too.
Yeah, that's currently going through the process, and we're experiencing a lot of that, that convict mentality. I mean, I know it all too well. Danny knows it all too well. We see it, smell it, breathed it, lived it for so long. And to be able to give suggestions of like how to combat that it's a little different, I think, and a little more difficult actually to communicate those things than you would think. Just say talk all the time is not really an effective way to like communicate like how to mediate those issues. So
we've heard from certified people that it's gotten worse since they've got certified too. We've heard from a couple people that because they're the only places that you can refer anybody to from DOC, it's created an environment where there's more people with prison mentality than there used to be. So it's changed things. So a lot of people have come up with a ratio that they won't go over, and then others, like for example, the very first residents we ever certified won't take referrals now from DOC. He just refuses them, categorically. But so it's an unintentional difficulty that you all have dealt because of this whole situation.
Well, we also have the luxury, because I have more than one house, but sometimes we can spread the love out, right? If we have people that are coming from corrections versus treatment versus, we look, Sean and I, we spend a lot of time as a team in discussion about this as well. We have to, and how close together some people come in. And Shauna does a lot of rooting around on the intakes in our Monday check-ins with these people. You know, what's their 6 degrees of connection to the people who are already here? Why are they truly wanting to come here? You know, so there is some of that, and we by far don't catch everything. But eventually, like Jason, it comes out. You know, in the instance this summer when she was away, I got wind of something, and I went back and looked at cameras, and I will tell you, I hate to do that. That is such a complete, but it told me a story in a 24-hour period of something that I was just like, well, damn. I mean, it was just, so yeah, I mean, I'm glad we have some of the tools we do. But again, as a team of staff, and I try to be selective, you know, I don't just want warm bodies to work with these people. I need people with time. I need people with experience, and I need people with experience within the community. You guys know me. I'm not in recovery. I learn about it every day, right? And I try at all times to keep an open mind. But if I didn't have those other people teaching me and talking to me, we wouldn't be as effective as we are at times. But we do sometimes miss things, and people get taken out, and that's part of the journey. Not taking personal responsibility for it, right? That's another part of it. You know, we can't want it more than they do. And sometimes we have to decide if that's the line, or that they've gone as far as they can go, and they may not be meeting the requirement that we feel that they should be, but for them, they're as far as they can go. And so we have to recognize that and say, oh, this is it. You're good. You've done enough. And here we're parting of the ways. And this is, you know, this is success for you. And celebrate that.
It does help having staff that really has came out of that incarceration or prison, and they've also completed the program too. So, you know, so they're standing from a position of, I know exactly
right
where you are right now, where you're coming from. You know, I've done walk this, and so that does help. I will say too that being a little bit of selective on who you accept into the program, like we try to stay away from family members, because if you bring in somebody there's too close of any type of relationship, whether they're a spouse or a mother, father, daughter, really, really good friend even, you know, what happens to that individual will affect the other individual as well. Just like you know, if you had 2 siblings and you do something, you know, something happens to the one, well, the other one will get upset because the other one's gotten in trouble, or if the other one starts to lean this area, the other one will follow. So we try to be mindful in cases like that. If you know, it's one thing to know an individual, but if it's clear that you've got a really, really close tie with an individual, we may refer them out to somewhere else. And not so much with the men, but with the women, we have had a lot of that pod mentality type of relationships within the home, to where, you know, you'll get a couple pod bosses in there. You know, they want to bully everybody around, the rest of the girls around. And so in cases like you said, you know, you had, you know, multiple locations, you know, we'll just simply maybe relocate them in another room. So you know, they may be a roommate with that person. Well, we'll separate you. And that kind of forces that too. And it usually will help. And again, communication, discussions. We're sitting down there, we're having a come to Jesus meeting about, you know, how you're acting and your behaviors and how it's affecting everybody else, and that, you know, we're not going to tolerate it. We want to see some change. And so, yeah, it's a number of things, I guess.
Well, anybody got anything else? Thank you all so much for presenting. I know it's weird maybe to present to other people that do the same thing. But thank you so much. I'm sorry that more people don't like us and didn't come this time. Last time when Hawk presented, I think there were 2 or 3 times as many. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We recorded this too, though, so people do watch the recording. So hopefully somebody will see it, and we may actually have to reach out to you for advice on the program I was talking about, and maybe that kind of thing, because I mean, they're not exactly similar, but I mean, there are some similarities, and I don't know anybody other than you all that has a situation as close to what they have. So thank you.
You know,
everybody.
ours is we're very limited. Like we said, I hate the fact that we do turn some of them away, but we can't put others at risk, especially people that are already here.
Yeah. Speaking of limit, I had another question. Are you all ever going to have a men's residence, or are you going to stick with women's residences? Like
Yeah,
the new.
We're
It's always
women's.
women.
We're women's. Even if I expand
Well,
it to a 30-bed one, it'll be women.
Well, I don't know if you've ever seen our certified list, but I mean, there's like 3 times as many certain men's beds as there are women's beds in West in you know that we have certified. So I'm not sure about the number for all the homes, but I mean, there's definitely a need for more. So I just wondered. It wasn't me trying to compel you to open a men's house.
It's not, our primary service as the Young Women's Christian Association is women first. Like I said, when we have a gentleman show up off the street, we serve them as best we can. We don't provide housing, but our residences are women.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for coming. And I will try to reach out to somebody else and see if somebody else will present next time. And if Misty, Joey, if either one of you all would like to volunteer, reach out to me or Autumn and let us know, because you're both amazing.